All right, welcome back everyone to another deep dive. This time we're going to be looking into CVE-2025-24071, a vulnerability that just cropped up in Windows Explorer. And it's kind of crazy when you think about it, how something as simple as just like extracting a zip file could potentially expose your NTLM hashes.
Yeah, that's a pretty significant issue. I mean, we all know as security pros how valuable NTLM hashes are to attackers, right? They can lead to all sorts of nasty things, lateral movement, privilege escalation. And the fact that this can all happen just from extracting a file, that's pretty alarming. I mean, 0x6ers, the researcher who found this, gave it a CVSS score of 7.5.
Yeah.
So, it's definitely something to be concerned about.
So let's break this down a bit. How exactly does extracting a zip file lead to this kind of credential leak? I know it has something to do with .library-ems files.
Yeah, that's right. So you see Windows Explorer, it has these, built-in features for indexing and previewing files.
Yeah.
And as part of that, it automatically processes these .library-m files when you extract them.
Okay, so remind me what these .library-ems files are again.
Right. So they're basically just XML-based files. They're typically used to, define library locations on your system. And normally they're treated as trusted files by the system.
Okay, so the system trusts them, but that's where the vulnerability comes in, right?
Exactly. The attacker, they can craft a malicious .library-ems file. And instead of containing a legitimate library path, they put in a URL that points to a malicious SMB server, one that they control.
So wait, you're telling me that Windows Explorer, when it encounters this malicious file, it just blindly tries to connect to this rogue SMB server?
Yeah, that's essentially what happens. And it does it all automatically in the background without any user interaction. So, you could just be extracting a file, thinking everything is fine, and bam, your NTLM hash is being sent off to the attacker.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about a completely passive compromise here, all just from extracting a seemingly harmless file. But how do we know for sure that this is actually happening? Is there any evidence?
Oh, yeah, there's definitely evidence. Researchers have used tools like Procmon to monitor what's going on.
Yeah.
And they've seen that, right after you extract the malicious .library-ems file, processes like explore.exe and search protocol host.exe, they start doing all these file operations on it, like create file, read file, all that stuff. And it all happens automatically without any user input.
Okay, so that's pretty damning. And what about the network traffic? Does that show anything suspicious?
Oh, yeah. The network traffic tells the whole story. You can see in Wireshark logs, these SMB2 negotiate protocol requests and SMB2 session setup requests being sent to the attacker server. And what's really key is that these requests, they contain NTLM as SPOV data. That's basically confirmation that an NTLM v2 authentication handshake is happening and that your hash is being sent over.
Okay, so this is really serious stuff, and it's not just theoretical, right? I mean, are we actually seeing this vulnerability being exploited in the wild?
Yeah, unfortunately we are. There have been reports of active exploitation. And to make things even worse, there's this threat actor, goes by the name Krypton. They're the developer of the EncryptHub stealer, and they've apparently been, offering this exploit for sale. So, it's clearly something that attackers are interested in using.
Yeah, that's not good. And of course, we can't forget about the PPOC and the Metasploit module that are already floating around on GitHub. That just makes it so much easier for any attacker, no matter how skilled they are, to exploit this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really lowers the barrier to entry for attackers.
So given all this, what can our listeners do to protect themselves?
Well, the good news is that Microsoft has already addressed this vulnerability in their latest patch Tuesday. So the most important thing is to make sure that all your systems are patched and up to date.
Patching. Always patching.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's really the most effective way to protect yourself from this kind of thing.
Right. So basically, CVE 2025-24071, it's a great example of how attackers are always finding new and creative ways to exploit seemingly harmless features in our operating systems. And the fact that this attack requires so little user interaction, that makes it, especially dangerous.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that we can't let our guard down. We have to constantly be on the lookout for new threats. And it makes you wonder what other, everyday actions that we take on our computers could be hiding similar vulnerabilities.
That's a great question to leave our listeners with. What seemingly harmless actions could be putting you at risk? Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Stay vigilant out there, and we'll catch you next time.
Stay safe.